Stefan Thomas. Don't you know you should have told me before you got me on here. You know I don't like talking about myself. You know I definitely don't feel like talking about the law. I got you. Let's make up something real fast. I thought you were gonna do your thing, and I was just gonna be chiming in with you, on you telling the world that Black lawyers ain't enough.
I mean, because that's what it really is about.
I know
we don't have enough Black lawyers out
exactly.
here.
That's how I'm trying to figure out why am I doing all this intro stuff. So, Stefan Thomas, I practice in Columbus, Ohio, in mainly the area of business law, but I also exercise practice in entertainment and arts and in litigation.
Awesome. Do you see yourself as driven?
Guess it depends on how you define it. How are you defining it for purposes of this podcast?
How you define it. That's what it's about. Do you see yourself as driven with your own definition?
I see myself as open. When things come to me or things are afforded my path, then I move forward with that. Whether that is classified or characterized as driven, I don't know. I don't know. I think it's relative, right? So, but for the purpose of the podcast, in order to be in vibe, I'm driven. If that's what you all want, ask Destin, is that okay?
Can't. So do other people describe you as driven?
I think other people would describe me as persistent, and certainly probably committed to obligations that I set forth or that I go into. So I guess they're all wrapped up in there. Driven could be synonymous.
Okay, awesome. How do you define success?
I don't. I think success is extremely relative. And so I think people fall into a very troublesome path when they try to define success too much, or when they try to base off of someone else's position. So I definitely think that it's something personal. I personally just don't walk around with that kind of success mantle. It just has never been my thing. I just like to enjoy, and I like to experience, whether it's up, down, in, out, whatever the case is. So I think it's great for people who have identified what success means for them. I think it keeps them on a particular path. It keeps them with a particular momentum. It just doesn't drive me the same way.
Okay. What is your fuel? Like, what fuels you?
Being, right? Not being, so being and not being, right? Being free, being fluid, being open, being available to energy, to the world, to new ways, to new existence, not being placed in any particular box or any particular confine. That wears me out. It's a soul sucker for me. So I think my fuel is being open to the next. So trying to do whatever I'm supposed to do in this space, or doing whatever I will do in this space, and waiting with the expectation for the new space.
Awesome. Why did you become an attorney?
It was suggested. There's no magic to it. I was in college, freshman year, an English professor pulled me into her office freshman year, first quarter. So I was a little bit nervous. I thought that meant, I guess I'm already out of here that fast, huh? And and she said that my writing had a voice to it or a tone to it. And she thought that her lawyer friends, tried to have that particular style or whatever. And she recommended I go to law school. So I thanked her and humbly mentally declined and went on about my collegiate path. And then I realized the last two or so quarters, I didn't have anything to do once I graduated. So why not? And that's how I got here. But that is how I became an attorney.
Okay. What was your undergrad? Your major?
Oh my gosh. So my undergraduate major was criminology and political science. And I ended up interestingly enough, building my curriculum around comparative studies and the Italian language. The only reason why I did not graduate in those is because I graduated early and was concerned that I would have to pay if I stayed longer.
Okay.
So basically comparative studies in Italian.
And then you went to law school.
The law school, yes.
Interesting
Being
pathway.
open, right?
There you go. That's what it's about. Living life, being open, being. So from there, did you know any Black attorneys like growing up?
That is always mesmerizing because my uncle and aunt are two very large criminal attorneys,
Okay.
capital punishment attorneys. Yes, capital punishment attorneys. And we never knew. It just is not something that we talk about in our family. And so I had been to his office so many times. He's my dad's one of his older brothers, and I just never paid attention. I didn't know what he did. I didn't, and he didn't,
Talk about it.
yeah, it wasn't like, what are you doing? So I did know, but didn't know. And then when I got to law school, before I got to law school, when I decided to go to law school, in preparing, I had an attorney at Ohio State that I had worked with in prep for the LSAT and things like that.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, awesome. What was your idea of a Black attorney?
I didn't have one.
Okay.
Not ever. Not one time. It never came to my mind.
Oh, wow.
That's a good question. No, I'm interested to see what the other guests.
Oh, so I'm gonna tell you now, my questions are not the same for everybody.
Oh, I'm like, that's a good question. I don't know. I never even paid attention. Not me.
Not me. Hilarious. Yeah, no, my questions definitely change. It really just depends on the conversation.
I love it.
So some of them are the same, but no one interview was the exact same at
Come
all.
on, earrings. Come on, earrings.
Thank you. You see them though?
I hear those earrings the way I hear this wind.
Whatever.
Don't play no games.
Listen, I have to come with all of the
three. You're gonna get 3 minutes of footage from this entire interview.
I mean, like it was a preview. That's all we had to use.
Just a bunch of B-roll. Just a bunch of B-roll.
Hilarious. Okay, let's see. How does being Black influence your drive?
Ooh, that's loaded, right? So, I don't even know where to start, to be quite honest. I think with being Black, I don't know how it influences my drive, but I know that it is such a substantial factor in my being in general. Recognizing, I think more recently, probably because I really got into Black history and American history and Black American history.
Yeah. When
I started college, it wasn't a part of my school curriculum, right? I mean, you had Black History Month. Yeah, I can't tell you really what happened during that time, honestly. I know we did review historical figures, but there wasn't really how substantive were we going into, right? Transatlantic slave trade and the Haitian rebellion and all those things were right. So and certainly weren't going into the treatment of Blacks, once you post-slavery into Jim Crow and things like that. Not to that degree, especially not in the North where I grew up, right? Yeah. So I think now it's more of a posture for me, right? It's more of a recognition that we are extremely powerful entities, and it is a badge of honor, right? So I don't know that I don't know how it impacts my drive, but it makes me walk with a purpose, right?
Yeah.
It makes me walk with a sureness, a
Yeah.
certainty. Um, because I think that we go through a lot of us as Black people. I can't say all of us, but I think a large number of Black people go through such a consistent whitewashing when we become professionals,
Mm.
where there is this constant energy and this tone of really trying to get you to doubt
Yeah.
your your power, right? And that is very, very exhausting. Um, because it could be conscious or subconscious. It could be
Yeah.
subliminal. It can be so many ways. And that's not to say that every person in the world is trying to do that. But unfortunately, especially when you're in one of the oldest traditions, one of the oldest professions in this
Mm-hmm.
particular country, it's just almost a part of the fabric, right? And it's an industry that doesn't move much
Yeah.
in any way. And it's still, quite frankly, just a club, right? So again, I don't know what it does for my drive, but there's something that it does for my walk and
Mm.
the way that I carry myself, and what I expect, um, when people see me, recognizing that there will be intimidation or there will be an assumption of ignorance or of concern and so many other words that I won't share on this particular podcast. Um, but all of those empower me specifically, all of
Mm.
those. Um, so I guess it probably drives me to be a bad beep, 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 beep. But I don't think it has anything to do with the law, right? It's
Yeah.
just
Just in
in my
general.
very, very, very essence of walking in this particular lane.
That's awesome. How or when did you know that you were a Black attorney?
The day I walked into law school.
Okay, tell us
Wow.
about that. How'd you know?
Um, there is a energy in the law school, and I had a good experience. Um, to the extent you can have a good experience going through any level of professional academia, right?
Yeah.
Um, but it was there were of course few of us, even though we were the largest class, I believe in history at that particular institution at that time. I think we still
The
may hold
largest
that.
the largest number of Black students in the class.
Correct.
Yeah.
Ever.
Okay.
And but we were still few, right?
Yeah.
So, I think it was just that natural um, kind of eyes on you type of thing.
Okay.
It's always this sensation of like, kind of, what are you doing here? And I can't point to anybody specifically, so it could very well be all internal, but I
Uh-huh.
doubt it. But once I became a lawyer, it became painfully obvious. Once I
Okay.
actually passed the bar and began to practice law, it became very obvious, and it is extremely obvious to this day, even in matters that I deal with within the last 30 to 90 days.
Give us
Um,
an example. Can you give us an example?
let's see. I'm trying to do it without putting anybody on blast unintentionally. So let's talk about the practice. So in practicing, I have had I have had white attorneys come to me and tell me to my face that I have intimidated them without having ever engaged with them in any way. I have had white attorneys try to touch my hair as I am walking in the opposite direction.
And just in
Um,
case if you're watching this, Stefan has long locks, just so you know. Did they try to touch your beard too, or just the locks?
well, people touch on my beard. No, I'm joking.
Come on. Some
Just the
reference.
hair.
I heard
just
it.
the
I call
just
I still
the
listen, even though people don't know this part of you yet. We can edit this part out, but I still listen to your EP all the time. Go ahead.
oh, now that we let's but
We're
no,
gonna get there.
I don't think anybody has tried to touch my beard,
locks,
but there have been so many references to my particular style of dress, my my essence, right?
Okay.
We have had, and me and a number of other attorneys talk about this often. When you step into, I have been called the criminal when I walk into courtrooms by the judge, and by attorneys on the other end, because of the assumption is if there's a Black man coming in any form, no matter the attire, he's certain being subjected to the criminal justice system. So, I mean, I got it. I have the examples for days, I think, actually.
How do you navigate that?
It depends on the day. I don't know what people are going to hear in this podcast or what they're going to see, but I can tell you right now, it depends on the day. There are days when, you got that balance and you got that zen, and it's just like, I'm going to let be what I'm going to let be. And then there are other days where I'm probably climbing across something because I'm just not in the mood, right? My Blackness is not, it's just not tolerant that day, right? So I think it depends on the day, but how do I in general navigate it? Just knowing that pretense is always present.
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't know. I can say that it's from meditation. I can say that it's from prayer. I can say that it's from walking through it all the time. But to be quite frank, I think I really try to stay, and I just have to use the word again. I try to stay as open as possible, recognizing that the legal profession is not who I am, right? There is no, I don't wear titles. I don't believe in it. That's why a lot of people don't even know that I'm an attorney, or do anything else, because it's just something that I do. And I think I try to keep that mental framework that this is some people's entire being. They don't know how to live without being in this space. That is not me. And so they are, for the most part, I think I'm able to channel that, even if I'm not thinking I'm channeling it. And I think that means a lot. Recognizing where people are, feeling where people are, seeing where people are, I think it really can change the way that, for me, it changes the way that I respond and the way that I internalize on those issues. But it definitely wears. I would never put on some air of like, oh, it's above me. Or I'm above it and all that kind of stuff. No, it wears me out. It really does. Walking into boardrooms or walking into meetings where you are not only Black, but you're one of the youngest in practice and in years. And you have tattoos and you have piercings and you have all these things. And so you feel the assumption, and when I say feel it, you feel it through the words that are being used. You feel it through the way that they try to, and when I say they, I generally mean my white counterparts in this particular instance, by the way they try to manage the legal matter, the way they try to regard you or disregard you, and all those things happen in all those spaces. So it just depends on the mood. Some days you're gonna get it. Some days God granted you grace.
Granted you grace. How do you release that? Like, how do you? Because you talk about you keep going, is from what I understand. If this is something that's constant, like what helps you to keep going? How do you not carry that to the point where it weighs you down to non-movement?
I think one way is recognizing that this is just a part of my journey, right? So I don't
again, recognizing this is what
just a part of my journey, this legal profession, and that actually does give me a lot of peace, because I know, and when I say a part of it, could be something that I deal in for the rest of my life. But that doesn't mean that it takes up greater than 10% of my thought space or my, spiritual space or anything like that. So I think that's one part, is really just um, recognizing that. Another part is permission. I believe that we give permission to things in our spaces, and I work really hard not to give permission to those type of things,
Okay.
to weigh me down. And I can't say that it's always worked. I think more recently, becoming more aware or feeling more aware of that power of permission for me has really helped. And then just on a very flat level, network. I have a strong network of professionals. They are not all lawyers. They are people at Fortune companies. They are people that are entrepreneurs. They are people that work multiple jobs. But just having that shared space, that safe space, where we can really release, and get that stressor out. But there are a number of Black attorneys in Ohio that I can connect with and do connect with on a frequent basis, just on the phone, maybe in person if we have that type of time. But a lot of us are busy, and so it is difficult. But the phone calls during the car rides, you can release a lot of tension and a lot of stress. And but I think it's very important that you select those safe spaces, because everybody, I don't believe, unfortunately, everybody means well by you, and I don't think everybody recognizes who you are when you are in certain conditions, right? If I'm zoned out and I'm going nuts, I know the people who will recognize, like, that's just a release. That's, he's not gonna do anything type of thing, or he's not that type of person or whatever. And if they do, then so be it. But yeah, those are probably the ways that I really keep going.
That's awesome. So having that community and that network of people who can create that space for you to be able to release that so you don't have to carry it is, I think, awesome. I agree that is very vital and important. I think we forget about the value of people, and what they can bring to your life, and then also what they can take. So having that, no,
That's
for
the
real.
truth.
So having that recognition of permission, like, that is essential, because even, I mean, white people are people. And we're talking about this, how we navigate, some of these white spaces as a Black person, but ideally they are people, and they may try to take just because you are Black, and they don't think that you deserve whatever it is, the space that you occupy or the position that you occupy. So I think that is vital and integral in terms of giving someone permission to occupy that space within your being. So that's dope. What would you say? Huh?
No, I was going to add, I've actually, in my network, I know people will likely assume, and I try not to assume. So let me clarify. My network is multiracial, right? So it's not just Black people, it's not just white people, it's not just people from a certain country or continent. My circle for me, it's healthy. Some of my strongest advocates, and quite frankly, safe spaces, especially coming in. I'm sorry, I thought I cut that off. Were white attorneys, have been white attorneys, and it's always an interesting and wonderful dynamic. But I know people always think that it's like, oh, all these Black people. That's not always the case for me. I appreciate where it is, and I do have a crazy strong Black attorney network. But I would be remiss if I did not share that it's a very multiracial safe space.
That's awesome. I think that's even more dope. You got a safe space of good humans.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No matter the race, just good humans. That's awesome. What would you say are your essential tools to success? And I know you don't define success, but you have.
Like,
I know, because I know you well enough to know that you was finna back right on out that question. But but you have some achievements, of course. You are a dynamic person that I know of. We can talk about the, the I don't even know what this word is, but the dynamicness, we're going to say that. the dynamicness of your person. But what what would you say are essential tools that you have in your toolbox that help you and achieve what you desire to do?
I think I like how you phrased it at the end. That just help you achieve like desires that you that type of thing. But I'm not gonna back all the way out because desire is another whole situation. But I think the things that I get involved with are the things um, that I engage in or pick up on my journey. I really think dedication is a very overused but also underused concept. Um, and I don't want to spend the entire podcast trying to articulate that all the way out, but I think dedication is really big. Being committed in a way that you're what's a strong like a palm tree, right? I think palm trees are the ones that when the wind blows, they can bend with the wind versus like snap. And people
Uh-huh.
think of like Everest trees and things like that. They're strong and tall and all those type of things. But I think really that dedication is being able to bend when the pressure is a certain way and still excel in that space and still provide what you're supposed to provide or what you're there to provide during that time in that space. So I think dedication is really big. I also think commitment. It, I'm very big on word is bond. Even being involved heavily in transactions and contracts and things like that. For me, if I say I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. I think that allows me into certain spaces because I think people can expect for me to fulfill what I have said I'm going to fulfill. Um, and I honor that in people who appreciate that and accept that of me. And I also recognize that for me that means that I can't put my words on everything. So I can't say yes
Mm.
to everything, or I can't say I'm going to do something because it's more of a binding for me, right?
Yeah.
And something that I want to be bound to. And then I think there's a level of honestly, I want to say excellence, but I say that with so much timidity because I don't want it to come off as excellence is a certain thing or a certain way of being. I think excellence is you doing it to the best of your capability, right?
I agree.
And
That's a good
so
word.
and so for me, it's walking with that excellence as much as I can all the time. So that again, the expectation is that if I am the person that is granted that opportunity, that I'm going to, I'm going to give it my all. It's just who I am, right? And so I think those three things are probably three tools. I like that phrasing. It makes it easier to catch on to that I would probably connect to. And I'm sure if we sat here and the wind wasn't blowing as powerfully it was in my ears and stuff like that, then we could probably go for longer. Um, but we can stick with those since those are what come to me right now.
Okay. Awesome. What is the best advice that you've ever gotten?
Some of these questions you should have sent in advance so I could think these things over. Um,
You a lawyer. Gotta be quick on your feet.
oh man, I'm trying to chill. Let's see. Actually, I don't know. I don't know that it was advice, but one of my really, really close creative one day we were out to and my apologies to everyone who has given me extremely incredible advice because I just cannot think of those things, but this one thing stands out to me. He said to me that being a contrarian is not a bad thing.
Okay.
And that was very powerful for me because of the way that I operate in these particular spaces. It can come off and has come off as some kind of rebellion or anti or all these other things, which the reality is it's true. Though I'm not consciously operating in that way, it is just who I am. And so I remember I must have said something that connoted that it was negative, and I did feel that it was negative, right? I've recently really shed negative and positive positions on things. I've recognized that it really was wears and tears on the soul, but in him saying that, I think it really freed me to operate as freely as I want to. And it is something that I think on. I mean, he said this at least 4 years ago at minimum. And I think about this probably 1 to 3 times a month.
So being a contrarian is not a negative thing. Is that was the advice?
That was the advice.
Have you ever taken the Enneagram test?
No, but it's been referenced to me.
And what do people say that you might be?
Nobody has said what. Oh, you know what? I don't know, because there are a couple of those tests that people say I might be something. There's a color test, might be red or yellow.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know.
The Enneagram has numbers, and one of the characteristics is like the challenger / the reformer, depending on which one you read. And so that when you said that advice, that immediately made me think of that, because that's actually my number on the Enneagram, the challenger / the reformer. So I think they tied, but I was like,
So you feeling good in this space? Okay, I'm with you.
I'm just saying, sometimes you gotta be contrary to what they say. Challenge the norm.
Challenge.
Challenge. It has to happen. Somebody got to do it. If not, we be stagnant.
Text me the link to the test.
Okay, I'll send it to you.
Because I may have taken it. I can't remember.
I've taken it. So there are different ones. I've taken it 3 times total, but I've taken it twice within the last year or two, and that the last 2 have been consistent. And so I was like, okay, well then I can accept it.
Comfortable in that space. Okay.
Yeah, it's fine. I'll accept it.
Yeah, send it to me.
It was enlightening. When I took it before, it wasn't as enlightening as it was in this part of my journey. So it was definitely enlightening. But yeah, I'll send it to you. Dope. What does your day look like as an attorney / all of the other things that you are?
Let's talk about as an attorney.
Okay, let's talk about that.
My day is actually I think it's pretty fun. Depending on how you look at things. I have really been fortunate and blessed to find myself being more in the advisory role. And when I was at one of my former firms, I had the concept of trusted advisor was emerging at that time. And I was young in the law, and I went and listened and all those type of things, and I understood what they were talking about. But I have since then really recognized that is a role that I have carried. And so my day really looks like oftentimes phone calls and meetings with leaders in different spaces and different businesses. And it really is, sometimes it's really legal, and sometimes it's really not. And so that is the part that has been really enjoyable for me, being able to be a part of someone else's or something else's growth process, and solidifying processes. And so that's really what a lot of my day looks like. And so once I have those calls, most of it is in some type of strategy of some sort. So whether it is trying to figure out how to get this transaction through, whether it's trying to figure out how to get a new company off the ground, whether it's trying to figure out how to stop this litigation before it busts wide open, whether it's helping someone restructure, a lot of it is really spent on a level of strategy. And then of course you have the standard, spending hours reading, researching, or drafting, collaborating a lot. And that also is enjoyable. One of my really, really good safe spaces, he always says, he's an attorney, a more seasoned attorney in Columbus, he always says is that law is not meant to be practiced in silos. And so I think the collaboration aspect is always enjoyable. Especially when you really are in spaces that are either unique or really contentious. So that's really my day. from a legal perspective. Start off with whatever is on the hot plate, take those phone calls, always leaving space to make sure that you don't have to rush people off where you can. And then strategy in between and execution and implementation and really working alongside my clients.
So about what time do you start your day?
Oh, about 6, 7 in the morning.
Okay.
Yeah, no, between 6 a.m. and 7 a.m.
And then by what time do you
Oh, you trying
end?
to see my whole day?
Yeah, I mean, people don't really know about, attorneys and, what they do, who they are. So like what's your day kind of like?
You know, every attorney is so different, right? The law is not my say all be all. So my days start with meditation
Okay.
and really getting into just a good energetic and headspace, right?
Okay.
Because I think what people may not recognize about a lot of attorneys is that you're constantly solving problems. You're
Yeah.
constantly taking on other people's concerns, um, and um, and that can be taxing, even though it may kind of bypass you for a minute. I think you start to remember, oh, I'm trying to make sure that this company gets to X million dollars. So I'm really trying to make sure they don't get hit by 500 employees or whatever the case may be. And so I like to start my day that way. It just gets me ready for the entire day. And then once I leave that space, I try to make sure that I have room for that space, that I'm not in some mad dash. I hate going into things with that rush energy.
Mm-hmm.
Tears me up. So
Yeah.
once I come out of that space, I generally make sure that no one can schedule on my calendar until probably, I don't even know what, but until there's a time, until it's until the right time, right? Um, and so from there, if people really are like trying to figure out, I guess, from there I go to my laptop or desktop or iPad or whatever I'm working from that day, and oftentimes it is correlated to where I'm working from, whether I'm working from a home office or whether I'm working from my office or working remote somewhere. Um,
Mm-hmm.
like currently. And so start my laptop, see what emails have come in between the time I shut my eyes because you asked how late do I work? I work pretty much all night.
Okay.
And so it depends on the matter. So some days I'm able to shut down around 5 or 6. Some days, a lot of days, I'm probably not shutting down until probably 11:30 to 3 a.m. Just depends on really what's going on.
11:30 to 3
So
a.m.
and I mean, it just is it depends on what's going on. Um, and so I start with the laptop or start with the electronic communications, go through those, make sure I'm responding to everyone really punctually. That's just a part of my value proposition to make sure that all clients, all potential clients, even third parties, unless it's really a third party that I really am not vibing well with, generally try to respond to everybody within a 24, 48-hour time period so that they know that they matter and that they're important and though they trust me, I am very appreciative of that. From there, I get into whatever is the hot topic of the day, whether I'm getting ready to go on site and sit with the C-suite or whether I'm staying off site and working on a commercial lease or whatever the case is. So I get through that particular transaction. Um, Normally, I think on a average day, probably working maybe about 3 to 6 transactions in a day.
Okay.
It just depends on the weight. Sometimes you're just in deals that they take like the entire time. So
Yeah.
in a crazy situation, it would be that one matter probably taking a lot of time. Um, but when it's kind of balanced, spending probably 2 to 4 hours on various matters throughout the day,
Okay.
which is why the days go so long.
Yeah, that makes
And
sense.
then you have to consider business, potential client meetings and things like that. Then for someone like me, you then have board work. So there are times when I have to take noon board calls, maybe a subcommittee call, or have to be on site with a board that I sit with or a nonprofit that I sit on, something like that. And then of course you engage with family and friends and all those things, and You kind of, by the end of the day, the end of my day normally ends with either sending out emails or scheduling emails to go out. And that's kind of how I end up stopping that day. But I think it's important to recognize that lawyers, well, at least let me say me, I have seasons, right? I have extremely busy seasons, and then I have what I call rest seasons. I think people call it my up and down. I think consciously that wore on me when I said I'm in the down season, because then you're thinking like, oh, I'm missing out on something, or oh, financially it's going to be a problem or anything like that. I completely changed that, and it really helps me stay in a very healthy space by recognizing that I have a peak season, I have a rest season, and so in my rest seasons, I could go with not doing a single matter in a day, and it really is just a lot of communications, a lot of catching up on administrative things, a lot of studying what's out there, what the law is doing, what industries are doing, especially the industries that I'm playing ball in, things like that. So it depends on the season for sure.
How long have you been a practicing attorney?
A decade.
Really?
I know. I was like, ooh, I said, this is too long. I've been in this space too long. Time for me to go.
No, that's awesome. Congratulations.
Thanks.
So let's talk about Stefan as the whole person. So you talk about how you're not just an attorney. How else do you show up?
I don't. No. Don't look at Desmond.
How you know he was right there though?
I'm telling you, I'm everywhere, man. I'm trying to tell you.
I'm everywhere. Hilarious.
I show up in creative spaces. I show up in business spaces as a strategist. I show up in spaces as a board member. I show up in spaces as a confidant. I show up in spaces as a professor. I show up in spaces as a facilitator. I show up in spaces as a number of things. I just paused because I realized I was about to go all deep and all that. I'm not going to go all deep. That's not what this podcast is. So those are some of the spaces, some of the ways I like that. Those are some of the ways I show up in spaces.
I mean, you can go as deep as you'd like. There are no limits here. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, this is what
we are, because we literally, no, because people don't, part of this conversation is people don't see lawyers or attorneys, judges, people who have achieved as humans. Like you don't see that humanity aspect or the holistic person. So that's really what this conversation and this platform is about, is really like, no, who are you as a person beyond how you show up in that professional space. So yeah, you can get as deep as you want.
I'd be trying to suck you in. Y'all don't even know. I trying to go deep water dive, but we ain't doing all that.
I'm just saying. But no, one of the guests, they were like, no, we went everywhere. Like we went everywhere. I was like, great. That's what I wanted.
That's a good interview right there. That's a good interview.
That's what I wanted. Awesome. How do you show up in your what does your creative space look like? Like how you show up creatively?
So I'm a singer, I'm a songwriter, a performing artist. And so most times if I'm showing up in that creative space, I'm showing up with that type of hat on, in the producer role of my own music and all that kind of stuff, working with a ton of incredible musicians and producers from various places. And so that's normally when I show up. I haven't showed up in that space a lot recently.
Because listen, let me tell y'all. So brother over here being modest, which is kind of great, humble, whatever you want to call it. Can I tell him your artist name?
Sure.
Okay. It's T.
I'm not going to tell you what the
WONG. Okay. T Wong. That's his artist name. I need y'all to go look him up because he's a dope artist. He's being very humble. And yes, let's really talk about how he has not occupied that space for a while, because
I'm going on mute. I am going on.
because that's what we really need to talk about. I mean, this season is about Black lawyers, but let's talk about how we need some more music. What are we talking about here? Like, what? Let's put all that to the side. That's what we really need to talk about. But we could go back to being
I'm done. It's the end of the podcast for me.
I thought you meant with music. Do you know how I was about to shut my laptop, mess up the whole production? Like, oh no. What country you say you in? I got time.
Meet me over here. We'll talk after.
No, for real, depending on how long you're there. Let me come visit. Got to go. No, that's awesome. No, but in real life, you really are a dope artist. So I do hope that you do get some more work out there for us to partake in. So, but I really do listen to your EP often. I ain't playing. I would start singing it, but that's
go ahead. Take control. Take the wheel.
It's not what we're here for. I actually want people to listen.
Well, that's what I'm here for.
I really want people to listen to the podcast. And if I start singing your song, I may not have any more listeners.
I beg to differ. I think you're going to get a lot more people tapping in on this, trying to figure out what's good.
Hilarious. But no, y'all, really check him out in real life. T Wong. All right. So what? No problem. And it's real because I don't be, I don't.
I know you don't say. I know. No,
it's real. Yeah, no,
it means a lot. It does.
Thank you, though, for real. Okay, so what is your dream for people who are driven while Black?
That's a good question. I don't think I've ever differentiated between people necessarily, but I think if I had to pin it to being driven while Black, it would probably be what my firm focus is on, and that's being authentic in this space. Really shining in who you are in this space, not feeling like, which is very hard to do, but not succumbing to might be easier to kind of some of the pressures that it feels to act in particular ways or take particular positions or not be a specific way. I think what I learned, I used to say it really early on, was that I am clearly Black, and there is no hiding it. It does not matter the tone of voice. It does not matter how far in the shadow. It does not matter the pleasantries. What people see when they see me, especially in the space, is a Black man. And so early on in practice, whatever spirit of apology that may have existed disappeared very, very early. So I think being driven by Black is authenticity.
Yeah.
Not apologizing for who you are, for what you are, for how you are, being in who you are, what you are, and how you are. Right? And I think the world would do itself. I think the world would do itself a justice if it recognized that superficiality does not equate to intellect, prowess, and capability. Right.
Yeah.
And so I think that's something that is a larger discussion, and I think it's something that a lot of people should probably work on, so that people don't feel like, and Black people don't feel like they have to look, act, speak, walk, respond in particular ways in order to be accepted. And I could really go on because I get a little bit more aggressive. The more I go into this conversation, I'm going to stop because I do want people to listen to your podcast.
I think that's where we're diverse. With diverse perspective. No, I totally agree. And I think when we talk about being driven while Black, I think a big part of that is showing up authentically and doing that unapologetically, because that is how we make space, that is how we take up space, that is how we continue to go to the places that we want to go, is if we do that literally. And because sometimes being Black often comes with challenges, that, like you said in the beginning of this conversation, that seek to stifle us from being who we are authentically. So I do think we have to be intentional about creating that space and showing up in that authentic manner, no matter what it looks like, no matter how it sounds, and no matter who it upsets. Because we deserve it. I think we deserve to show up authentically. And the same for white people. Honestly, it don't have nothing to do with Black or white. It has something to do with you as a
Mm-hmm.
human. You should be able to show up authentically, unapologetically. And I think when we start looking at the world like that and looking at and occupying spaces like that, then we can do that.
It makes me think of appreciation, right? I People have so many conversations around, diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Mm-hmm.
It comes and comes and comes, and I think it's great that we have people who are actors and vigilant in that space, and they are really out on a mission because you need it. But I also think there's a level of it that is on the spectator. Right, the spectator has to at some point appreciate others, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's the part that this is not a tolerance. I really,
Right.
it really bothers me when I hear people are tolerating, or people are doing just enough. They're here, right? That language. But it's appreciation, and for me, that is how I operate. I appreciate everything that others bring to the table. It's who they are. I
Yeah.
don't think that we could have any advancement if we did not have diversity in every single way. And so I think once we truly, as a humanity, get to a place of appreciation of others, once we get there, I think we'll see this civilization go to a place that it's never been. But as we continue to fight against uniformity, and singularity of thought, of
Yeah.
being, of action, of this way is the right way and that way is the wrong way type of vibe. These polarizing concepts and views and positions. As long as we stay in this space, we will continue to struggle to evolve
Yeah.
and advance. Um, so I really hope that at some point this world, whether it's during my lifetime or not, that it gets to a place of appreciation, of authentic, genuine appreciation.
Yeah. That value. Okay, so fun question.
Because that wasn't fun.
Nah, I mean, a little it I mean, I do that diversity, equity, inclusion work. So, that's fun for
You
me. Remember, I'm the challenger reformer. That's fun for me.
send me
So
that thing, man.
that's fun for me. However, what is the title of your album cover that explains your Driven While Black story? And it's also interesting because you're also a performing
I'm
artist
like,
who
what?
has albums out here in these streets. So, what is the title of your album cover that explains your Driven While Black story?
My album, Just Be.
Just Be. Aha, I like it. So, is this a country album, R&B album, gospel, spiritual, soul?
It's
What type of music?
definitely, um,
Rock. I forgot who I was
um,
talking to. Let me add rock in there. What what type of music we gonna have on this album?
oh, that's a good question. I think, I'm not gonna say what it's not. Let's try to
Okay.
stick with what it could be. I think you would have um, probably a bit of lyricism in there from a rap perspective. So when I say lyricism, I'm thinking like Kendrick, that vibe. Um,
Lyricist.
a,
Okay.
a
So
little
rap.
bit of maybe a little bit of mm, oh. these genres have become so conflated, and people look at them, and so now it's like now you're getting like into like more the music side. So I'm like having a hard time, right? So I could say like soulish, some soulish in there. I think you
Soulish.
can get away from it.
Okay.
Um, I do think that you could have a level of what would I say, like worship undertone, maybe? I don't want to say any
Okay.
particular. I don't want to say any particular religion because there are some sacred spaces with some sacred sounds that are just unbelievable. And I think when
Mm-hmm.
you do listen to that music, it does take you into a different scape and zone.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't say that it's one very particular spiritual walk, but let's just say that it's in there somewhere.
Okay.
Um, you always need a little bit of rock, right? Because it's just between lyricist and rock, they are just like there is
That's
no
what it
apology,
is.
right? We are
Okay.
here. You
Yes.
know what I mean?
Yes.
Um, but I mean, I like so much music. So many genres and so many things that don't have genres, and so
Okay.
no, that's a good
Yeah.
question.
This would be interesting. You're a trained opera singer too, right? Have you
Me?
trained? Yeah. Have you trained in opera?
I I have not trained in opera. I was trained by Betty Hill, who I believe is now the head of all Columbus City Schools music,
Okay.
um, as a bassist, as a vocal bassist,
Okay.
and through her, by her, I was actually able to get several offers to universities to be a bassist.
Okay. Oh wow.
Um,
That's awesome.
my aunt is I say that with trepidation because my aunt is Juilliard trained. So
Oh,
I
okay.
think if she
Oh,
listened
that's
to this,
awesome.
she would be like, "Don't lie." But then she may say, "No, tell the people." So I don't
Okay.
know. I don't know. I'll leave it
Oh,
to the
that's
people.
awesome. Well, thank you so much. How can folks stay in touch with your drive?
Ooh, Di, I'm private. Call me, email me.
First, you gotta find his number to call him. But no.
it's on the. They can certainly check our website www.tilawgroup.com. All of our contact information is on there. I'm one of the members there. Very proud to be there. We've had that company for 6 years now, so it's a
Oh,
good space
awesome.
to be in an entrepreneurial space, especially when the stats are absolutely against you as a Black-owned enterprise in the United States. You can certainly check out the creative spaces wherever you want. If you're on any of those platforms, as Di said,
T1.
www.twongcreates.com, twongcreates.com. Um, you can probably look me up on if I'm teaching somewhere at the time. I don't know. There's so many little things, so many places. I'm really humbled to be accepted by and appreciated by so many different circles and members.
Well, awesome. Thank you so much. Is there anything else you want to leave with the people?
Nah, y'all don't want me getting started. Be you, live your life, experience the journey.
Yeah, I love that. Experience the journey. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you
I
for having me.
appreciate you.
I
I appreciate
appreciate you and the whole team that's back there that got tired of listening to me probably in the first 17 minutes. So I appreciate you all for sticking with it and not leaving it die there by herself to man every single device.
you. Yes, thank you very much.